What up, y'all? It's Greek Indian Hip Hop Beats back with another edition of Tutorial Tuesday. And today we're going over how to find the tempo of any sample. Let's get into it. So it's usually one of the biggest questions for any new sample-based producer is how the hell do I find the tempo of these samples? A lot of times, especially when I first started out, you just go in and try to keep tweaking it over and over and over again. It's a really annoying process. Found a couple of tips and tricks here on how to find the tempo of samples, especially the different ways that people might use samples. I'm gonna go ahead and just go over all that stuff and how to do it in FL Studio. Let's get it. All right, let's go ahead and open up an Eddie. All right, let's just go ahead and grab one of these samples over here and throw it into Edison. The number one universal way that's easiest to find the tempo for anything is just using the tap tempo. So if you come up to the actual tempo of the beat right here, if you right click and then hit tap, we'll have this thing pop up, and then all you gotta do is left click on it and it'll make the tempo as you click along. So if we just go ahead and play the sample, we'll just go ahead and tap along with it. Alright, so it looks like this one's around 57, 58. And so right there, I pretty much have a good idea. And if you go to pitch your sample, you'll be able to use the same technique to find it if the tempo changes after you pitch it. So if we click on this clock right here, we can change the actual key of the sample. So we can shift it up a couple semitones. We'll just go ahead and shift it up 4 and hit accept. And now it's at a higher pitch and a little bit faster tempo. So we can go ahead and figure out this too. This is just, my opinion, the best universal way to find the tempo of any sample. Of course, there's a couple issues with it. One is it's not very precise. Sometimes there's samples or things like that where it's not exactly on beat. It might be a fraction of a beat. And so you'll have to still fudge things around afterwards, but at least it'll get you closer than doing a lot of other things. The second thing is maybe if you're really, really new to music, you're like, wait, how do I know when to actually click on it? That just kind of comes from experience. You kind of just got to have a feeling for where the downbeat is and where the loop or where the tempo really starts over again. And so the more that you get into sampling and listening to music, you'll be able to tell. Probably one of the easiest ways is if you have a sample that has drums in it, you'll have that first kick drum that hits, and then you'll have the snare that hits, and then eventually a kick and a snare. And so usually the kick and the snare will be on beat. So the kick starts it, and then the snare hits, that's one beat, and then to another kick. And eventually you'll start to get a feel for samples and their tempo after you just do it for a while. So if that strategy doesn't necessarily work for you right away, the second strategy in Edison is you can actually just pull up and FL Studio will take out the tempo for you. While you're in Edison, just go ahead and hit F2, and you'll get this box to pop up, the sample properties right here. And if you come down to Auto Detect, right next to where it says Tempo, you can click that and then click Detection for Songs with Constant Tempo. If you hit that, it'll go ahead and give you the tempo right there. Now, this would seem to be the most efficient way to find the tempo. The problem is it's not always correct. So you might have to go back and do the tap tempo again anyway. So for instance, on this one, it says 105.2, but as we found from before with tapping it, it's actually more to 71, or it's going to be 142 if you go at double speed. So yeah, this is an instance right now where if it works, that'd be cool, but that 105 is definitely not the right tempo. One other question I hear a lot from sample-based producers is how do I change the key or the pitch of the sample without changing the tempo? So if you go into this clock portion right here, if you go to method, I typically use resample, but you can also go down to elastic where you go E3 generic or E3 mono. And this will allow you to change the pitch, and then the time is what actually changes the tempo. And so let's just say that we use that, we'll accept and let the whole thing shift. Now you still need to be able to find the tempo. The one last way that you can try to figure out the tempo is, again, you still need to know like when the downbeat starts and when it repeats itself again. But if we're actually just chopping up and just dragging directly onto the playlist clip, and so I would say it starts right here. And that's usually one good way to get an idea of where it actually, the downbeat starts and where the next downbeat is. If you select this loop and then you just play it, if it sounds correct in your ear, like it's a constant flow with the tempo, then it's probably good. So that sounds close enough. Seems to repeat and still kind of stay and flow. And so let's just go ahead and screw up this tempo right here. If I go back to the playlist clip or playlist, and then I go ahead and drag this selection onto the playlist, you'll see it doesn't go all the way over. It's kind of like in between one of the bars right here. And then if you make sure that the time right here is put all the way down, as soon as you start changing the tempo, the clip will grow or shrink. And so what you can do is just literally line it up to where it hits that next bar. And then everything will be in sync for you. All right, now that's pretty much it. I was literally making beats for years before I even learned about the tap tempo technique, so I know it might sound simple, especially if you already know about it, but as soon as you do learn about the tap tempo, it is an absolute game changer when you're trying to sample and make beats. There's probably a lot of other ways to make it easier to find the tempo of beats and how to change and stretch the samples and stuff as well. But those are just the main things that I particularly use. If you do know any other techniques, feel free to leave them down in the comments. If you got any additional questions on anything that you saw here in the video, definitely let me know. If you got any tips on me for how to make these videos better, definitely let me know as well. Again, Greek Indian Hip Hop Beats, aka Greek, aka half Greek, half amazing, aka Dat Boy. Tutorial Tuesday, Tempo. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it helped. Have a good one, y'all.